Hello, and welcome back to episode 4. 4 days in a row. What a way to start off this podcast. Today is Wednesday, March the 13th. I am recording this at 2:45 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I hope it is, going good for everyone out here tuning in today. I have a lineup today. First off, I'm going to talk about the biggest news of the day, which is undoubtedly the TikTok ban, which also gives the president some very, depends on how you interpret it, but some very scary powers for the future. And maybe if you don't think President Biden will use it that way, you should be scared of how a future president that you don't like will. Because this helps no one other than the lobbyists in Washington, D.C. from Apple and Google and other American big tech companies. Following that, I'm going to again talk about Robert F. Kennedy. I'm sorry I've talked about him so much. I should be promoting more libertarian people, but unfortunately, not quite unfortunately, but RFK is definitely in the headlines a lot more than any libertarian ever will be, unless RFK becomes a libertarian, which is totally possible. Maybe I'll talk about that a little bit since I haven't actually talked much about that. And a lot of people on here probably, maybe not a lot of people on here, but I'm sure I know some people have never heard or do not know a lot about Robert F. Kennedy. So maybe I'll just give a quick example there of some people or of who he is. I'm going to talk about the measles outbreak. That's right, measles. Is reported in 17 U.S. states, and it is thought to come from the illegal immigrants coming across the border. The migrant shelters have become just measles breeding grounds. So far, the CDC has tracked 45 cases. So I will get into that later. I'm not going to get into it too much now, but that is one of the other stories that you can expect today. Also, in terms of this TikTok thing, I will be talking about some of the other United States cyber digital policies, whatever you want to call them, that similarly, like kind of what I talked about last episode with what was happening in other places like Europe and Canada. This is going to be a little more U.S. focused and a little more specific. It's not going to be about hate speech. It's going to be about TikTok and some mass surveillance that they want to do online. So those stories are going to be connected, and you should be excited because I am excited, and it starts right now. Starting off with the biggest story today, which is the House voting through the bill to ban TikTok. And this is huge. From my understanding, TikTok has 6 months to sell off the Chinese owned parts before getting banned. If you ask me, that sounds pretty racist. No, I'm just kidding. The vote was 352 to 65, and surprisingly, 15 Republicans voted no, and 50 Democrats voted no as well. So Democrats actually outnumbered Republicans in voting for this bill, which is really weird, as I mentioned the other day, with all of the free speech, free internet, anti-censorship, anti-government, that wing of the right, which is most of the right. This is a big issue for right-wing people. About having free speech on the internet and making sure that the government isn't having any abilities to choose what we see online, what we can do online, doesn't have to mediate our information for us, essentially. And so this is a huge, huge deal. And Thomas Massie took a stand against this, as well as Marjorie Taylor Greene. So she obviously opposes this, says it opens Pandora's box. She was banned from Twitter and I think probably maybe some other social media companies. I'm not totally sure, but she does say that this is opening Pandora's box. And it so I'm not totally sure what's going on with TikTok. From my understanding, it was just a capitalist venture, and the owner is like Singaporean. I didn't know that there was a ton of direct links to the CCP, and I'd actually heard that there wasn't. But from my understanding, like the biggest company, uh, like the biggest like owner of TikTok, like one of the biggest shareholders is this company called ByteDance, which is like the parent company of TikTok, and I guess they are like CCP controlled. So like the biggest ownership of TikTok is CCP through ByteDance. But basically, what this is doing is it's giving them a chance to divest those parts. So they have 6 months or however long it was that to sell that part. But I'm also confused because I saw some reports the other day that TikTok stores and manages American data in America. So let me just type that into the search browser real fast. I am using Brave. I have decided to boycott Google, and that is a story for another time. Um, let's see. I don't see anything here coming off the top of my head, so disregard that I just said that because I do not know. But from my understanding, there is actually like a U.S. branch of TikTok that's partially separated. Um, yeah, partially separated. Anyway, uh, moving along to some more conversation on this. Um, Rand Paul, he has some interesting things to say about this. Quote, reactionaries who want to ban TikTok claim the data can't be secured because the algorithm is in China. He says this is not true. The truth is the algorithm runs in the U.S. in Oracle Clouds with their review of the code, not in China. Maybe we should examine the facts before committing violations of the First and Fifth Amendments. They want to ban TikTok because it's owned by China. Not true. 60% of the company is owned by U.S. and international investors. 20% is owned by the company's founders. 20% is owned by company's employees, including over 7,000 Americans. The CEO of TikTok is from Singapore, not China. So ask yourself why they keep repeating these lies to scare you. That's what Rand Paul said, the senator out of Kentucky who has a good chance at being the Senate Majority Leader for the Republicans with Mitch McConnell stepping down recently. He said this on X recently on March 13th, so that is today, right before this got voted on. He had some more to say about it. This is his official statement after the vote. Quote, the passage of the House TikTok ban is not just a misguided overreach, it's a draconian measure that stifles free expression, tramples constitutional rights, and disrupts the economic pursuits of millions of Americans. With an iron fist, Congress dictated an unrealistic and narrow path for divestment, effectively banning TikTok and ignoring its substantial investments in data security. This act is not securing our nation. It's a disturbing gift of unprecedented authority to President Biden in the surveillance state that threatens the very core of American digital innovation and free expression. So the reason why people are really freaking out about this, right, is they're calling it a Trojan horse. Some were calling TikTok a Trojan horse for the CCP to spy on Americans, but others are calling this measure Trojan horse to eventually ban more apps. And here you're going to see where it really gets crazy. Websites. This is in the language of the bill that just passed in our House of Representatives. So everyone needs to be aware of this. But, free speech platforms like X and Rumble, which is like a YouTube alternative, except does not censor true information and ban people off of it for sharing their opinions. Anyway, those two sites are what people are fearing is next, and it is because this bill is a little vague, and it might give some extra powers that were not intended originally, and maybe not even intended intentionally, but maybe they were. So this is talking about this is direct language from the bill. A covered company that is controlled by a foreign adversary. This is talking about what can be banned, right? So controlled or owned by directly or indirectly by an entity in the clause, and this clause is a company that is controlled by a foreign adversary and that is determined by the president to present a significant threat to the national security of the United States. So the president gets to determine if this is a significant threat or not. And yes, it's a foreign adversary, but how much of our world is actually governed through China right now? Or maybe not governed, but goes through China. I know there is a massive amount of Chinese product and Chinese companies, in tech and in cybersecurity and in every resource, manufacturing, etc., 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 etc. It just doesn't stop here. Let me see if I can find this specific language about banning websites, because it did say that it's not limited to apps. So the president can essentially ban websites as well now, which is scary at the least. This does sound like an opening. As Marjorie Taylor Greene, I unfortunately have to quote Marjorie Taylor Greene because she said something true here. This bill would open Pandora's box and create a slippery slope for future government censorship of Americans in our precious First Amendment. Regardless of what you think of Marjorie Taylor Greene, I think this is the only takeaway from this bill. It does question our First Amendment rights online, and it does establish a precedent for the president to be able to control what we have downloaded on our phones and what we see on the internet. There is an aspect of this. Okay, here. Before I go into this, we're going to quote from Thomas Massie, the Republican. The Republican House member from Kentucky. He says, quote, "It could also be named the Facebook and Protection Enhancement Act. It is not the American people that are going to benefit the most from this. It will be Facebook." FISA, I don't know what FISA is off the top of my head. Give me 1 second to double check that. The Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. That is what FISA, F-I-S-A, stands for. Well, that post just disappeared. So I will talk about what I was going to talk about before I started reading that, just before I read this quote from Thomas Massie. There is a Zionist component to this. I haven't used TikTok for over a year, and I have not regretted that decision once. I actually hate TikTok. Anyone who knows me knows that one of the things that I am proudest of myself about is that I hate TikTok. I think it makes people dumber. I think it's ruined the attention spans of my whole generation is fucked because of TikTok. We are dumber than we were. We are more misinformed than we were. And I don't think it does anything but create distractions, and it just makes it harder for people to stay present in their lives, and I think this is intentional. So, obviously, I don't like TikTok. I'm only arguing on this behalf because I like my rights, and I like the rights of my fellow Americans and the rest of the people in the world. I think that everyone should be able to decide from themselves, if they want the CCP collecting their data. The best way to stop that is to just have people realize that that's what's happening. Maybe have an American company create a sufficient project, because that is how capitalism works. The better product wins. So, yeah, I would have preferred a straight up, another thing I hate is government spending. I would have preferred a government spending bill to instead create an American TikTok at this point. Obviously, I would hate the government to be involved in what's going on there. Anyway, back on. Oh, sorry, I forgot to even talk about what I was going to talk about with the Zionists. There's a lot of support from major Jewish organizations, and the conspiracy is that the teenagers and the people on TikTok have been disillusioned to the Israeli Zionist propaganda regarding Palestine. And, obviously it's hard to not be paying attention to that at all. If you are not paying attention at all, then I don't know what's happening in your life, because that is, since October 7th, that has been one of the only things I hear about every single day. Um, but people have been very pro-Palestine, the younger people, and the younger people happen to be the majority of the people on TikTok. So there is a idea that maybe there is some unhappiness among the Israelis about what is being shared on TikTok, and they just want to ban that from America because obviously they want America to keep funding their war. So we are back to Thomas Massey. Quote, "It could be named the Facebook Protection Enhancement Act. It is not the American people that are going to benefit the most from this. It will be Facebook. FISA has been abused. This is my concern with this TikTok ban. It will be abused. Why does it need to be 13 pages long? This sounds like when American countries try to do business in a third world country, and again, this is cure that is worse than a disease." So this is what he says. He says that this is worse. This brings a new precedent to America that we have never had. And going along with this, it's very strange. There's some clauses in here. The Section 230 protections are about to be neutered by the Supreme Court, and that's going to add. This isn't a clause from the bill. I think this is something separate that's happening. An expectation of something that's going to happen. That's going to be Section 230. Will be stripped down a little bit, and that's going to add a lot of liability to centralized platforms, and it's going to increase censorship. So that's going to restrict free speech, and it's, at this point, the people that are supposed to be pro-free speech, which is the Republicans, are less pro-free speech than the Democrats. So anyone who is still a Republican, please come to the Libertarian Party. We would love to have you, and I think that they will actually do everything that you want. And maybe not everything, but I think they will do more. At this point, it is impossible to say that the Republicans have backed their rhetoric very well. Anyway, there is another policy passed by the government recently that increases your skepticism. At least it should increase your skepticism about the government and what they are trying to do to you. This is a post from Justin Amash at Justin Amash. That's Justin Amash at on X. This is from him. Quote, "The U.S. government has built an apparatus of mass surveillance that is unconstitutional, abridges or endangers all of our rights, and must be dismantled. Under Section 702 of FISA, which is the that Federal Foreign Intelligence Security Act, which was quoted by Thomas Massey earlier, the NSA, FBI, and other government agencies collect and store private communications from millions of Americans and then query FISA 702 databases for our personal information, all without probable cause and a warrant. When the state can't gather our data through brute technological force, it compels private industry to hand it over through intimidation and legal threats, or simply by paying or rewarding private actors to serve as agents of the state. And the abuses go beyond surveillance to due process. The state wields the Espionage Act as a weapon to silence whistleblowers and journalists. These assaults on the Fourth and Fifth Amendments chill speech." End quote from this. So this is bringing me to another thing that I was going to talk about that I would have forgotten. So thank you, Justin, for reminding me. That a lot of our data that were supposedly being harvested by the CCP on TikTok is all available for sale. Google, if you forget, this is why I'm wow, I'm too excited. Sorry, this is part of why I'm boycott. Wow, 2 in a row. Part of why I am boycotting Google, because they track your data, as you know, as most websites and companies do, and then they sell it. So the CCP could, if they wanted to, go and just buy all of Americans' data. And they wouldn't have to spend the billions of dollars that they would have had to spend to set up TikTok as a spy agency or whatever for them to like secretly spy on Americans. They can just go and buy your data. I hope you all realize that your data, everything you do online, is available for sale somewhere. That is a well-known fact. At least it should be. But yes, they want to track you more, and they want to not need a warrant. I saw another thing that they are actually trying to pass a bill to not need a warrant to access Americans' phone data. So yes, they hate you, and they are trying to come after all of us, and they just want us to comply, and they want to have more power while they take ours away. That is the TikTok segment for episode 4 of Orr's Observation Podcast. I will be back in about 3 seconds. Welcome back. I hope that wasn't too long. And now we are going to talk again about Robert F. Kennedy. Not about his vice president, even though he did confirm that he is going to announce that on March the 26th. So that is 13 days from now. He's going to do that in Oakland, California. And he says that the running mate he has selected has already agreed to run with him. So if it is Aaron Rodgers, if it is Jesse Ventura, if it is any of the other people that were in that New York Times shortlist, which it's not guaranteed to be, I've seen no confirmation from RFK, from Aaron Rodgers, from Jesse Ventura, from anyone that any of the names in that New York Times report are actually in the mix, are actually considering anything. So obviously we just got to wait and see. But I'm going to talk about something a little different. I'm going to talk about this, the Secret Service, and Joe Biden's refusal to give it to Robert F. Kennedy. This is the only time a presidential candidate has been denied Secret Service protection in history. In history, this has never happened. And this is a guy whose father and uncle were both assassinated. And get this, there have been 2 people that have been trying to attack Robert F. Kennedy already. There was one just in November, it seems, that there was the most recent attack, where someone broke into his house and returned again. So he was actually arrested twice. And then in September, there was someone who was using fake federal ID, a fake badge, and had an arsenal in his backpack, just totally full of weapons, and tried to approach him in a short distance, tried to approach him during an event that Kennedy was speaking at, which was just happened to be not very far away from where Robert Kennedy, his father, was assassinated and murdered. And this is a guy who's polling at 22%. That's almost a quarter of the vote. And you know what's crazy is that Joe Biden was considering giving Secret Service protection to Nikki Haley, who finally just dropped out of the race recently. But Nikki Haley, regardless of how you feel about her, she was not winning. She was doing horrible. I don't think anyone expected her to win anything. Most of her voters were from 70% of her voters were not from her party, and this is in the primary where only people of the Republican Party are supposed to be voting, meaning that 70% of her voters are likely either not Republicans or are Democrats that switch their party votes to try and fuck with Trump. And Biden was going to give her Secret Service protection. So there is absolutely no explanation for this other than that Biden doesn't want to legitimize RFK. The establishment doesn't want to legitimize RFK, and they just want to ignore him. They just want to pretend that he's not there. Or we could get really tinfoil hat here and say that they are going to kill him because they are not giving him the protection that he deserves. And of course, I'm sure that he has a nice private security detail. He would have to be dumb and not presidential material to not have a security force surrounding him at all times. So I'm sure he is pretty safe. I am sure that for the most part, the people around him know what they're doing. But again, the principle alone does not sit right with me. So please, if you are listening this far, go sign security.kennedy24.com, the petition to get him Secret Service protection. I can't assure that this is going to do anything, um, but there's been petitions like this for a long time. This has been a battle that he's been fighting. It's been a long-term issue for him. So please, even if you are not going to vote for him, you should just sign this because you are an American and you do not want another American, a patriot, to get murdered like his father and his uncle were. So, yes, that is all I wanted to talk about today because I feel like this is a very unfair situation. I personally like RFK more than most people do, so that is why I'm talking about this today. I don't even know if I'm going to vote for him, so just take that as it is. Um, Protect fellow Americans, and yeah, that's all I have to say about this one. On to the next segment right after the tone. All right, guys, welcome back. We are going to talk about the major measles outbreak that is spreading around the country right now. This I was put on to by an article in Zero Hedge. The title is Major Measles Outbreak Reported in U.S. as Migrant Shelters Become Infectious Disease Breeding Grounds. So basically, there is a huge measles outbreak in the United States, and it's already in the first 2 months of the year. It's already, or almost already, surpassing the the cases from all of 2023. So far, the CDC has reported 45 cases across 17 states, and those states are Arizona, California, Florida, Georgia, Indiana, Illinois, Louisiana, Missouri, Maryland, Minnesota, Montana, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and Washington, D.C. maybe, or Washington State. It does not clarify. So across those 17 states, there have been 45 cases, and there was 58 cases recorded in the entirety of 2023. So keep that in mind. The CDC arrived in Chicago yesterday to help the city with its first measles case since 2019, where 5 people were confirmed to have had measles, and all 5 of those were inside of an illegal migrant shelter in the city, which houses 1,800 illegals right now. So that is potentially almost 2,000 cases if everyone here gets it. Not saying that they all will, not assuming anything there, but that is a lot of people that have been exposed at the very least. So hundreds of people are already feared to be infected in California and Arizona after cases were confirmed in people in the states who had visited local hospitals. So yes, they already, obviously hospitals are sure breeding ground, but that's just a lot of people to come in contact with. So I'm going to give the warning here. Measles typically begins with a cold-like symptom, and then would cause a rash. That's just going to be a bunch of small little red spots that might feel a little raised, and it typically starts on the face or behind the ears, and then will eventually spread farther. So it's very scary. Obviously, the case was in Washington State, not in Washington, D.C. I have confirmed that. But it's interesting. So, this is another thing that people haven't really talked about. I myself have actually been worried about this for a while. But, in a world where we just had a COVID pandemic, just a pandemic of any kind, it just seems a little irresponsible to just kind of let a lot of people in, and we don't really know their health history. We don't know if they're bringing any diseases in, because obviously you have to remember that if you look back to like the Columbian era, any time where there's people going to a land or being exposed to a land where they have not been typically or have never been exposed to, there's obviously a huge spread of disease and death. So in countries, first world Western countries, we've eradicated a lot of diseases. You can contribute that to vaccines. You don't have to. You can contribute it to whatever you want. But the disease numbers here for major diseases like measles has gone down. Basically eradicated. Most people just assume that it still is. But we don't know what these people are doing and what kind of diseases they have, and they just come right in. And they also are flown in on airplanes. 320,000 people have been flown in from foreign airports crossing the border and landing into local United States airports. So that is a lot of people on planes with each other that have been like bussed and flown into all of these sanctuary cities across the country. So, yes, it is definitely very scary, and it is not totally. We don't know the total numbers yet. Obviously, these numbers are going to go up. There will be more cases of this, and this might not be the only infectious disease that's being spread through the border. And this is something that no one thinks about when they are championing this massive influx of illegal immigration. People coming from who knows where, doing who knows what with no matter. It doesn't matter their intention. They can say whatever they want. They're going to get let in. There is a 97% release rate among people that are getting caught. And there's also a lot of people that are just not getting counted. They say that for every arrest or encounter, there are usually 2 people that go free and undetected. Most of the southern border is unmanned. A lot of the northern border is unmanned. And people are coming through thousands a day. So, this is probably not the only disease that we thought was over, but is going to come back thanks to the illegal immigration that somehow a lot of people want and are happy with. I'm sure they just do not realize all of the disaster that will come from this. So, yeah, that is terrifying. And if the next pandemic does start, just remember that we have all these people that we just kind of let in. It could have come from there. And, yeah, I mean, it's definitely not going to help slow the spread. I will keep it at that. So, thank you for listening to the measles outbreak segment of this episode. And I'm going to come back with another one right after. Okay, welcome back to the last segment today. This is just going to be the headlines section again. The first headline I'm going to talk about today is something I saw from Dr. Side Hater, and he's talking about chlorine dioxide and its use. He said, finally looked it up, read the book, talked to a practitioner who saw it raise the nearly dead. The sensors really did a number on it. So essentially, this is what I am assuming, because when you're looking at this famous Trump told everyone to drink bleach quote, he actually said the word disinfectant, and a lot of people are assuming that he could have meant chlorine dioxide and not bleach, and chlorine dioxide is ingestible, and it does actually potentially may help end COVID or the flu or any virus you have before it actually makes you sick. So if you're noticing, think might be some stuff in your nose, you're exposed, you could use some chlorine dioxide potentially. I don't have the right dosage for it, and I'm sure that as all other real medicine is censored, it's very censored on the internet, I am sure. So look, do your own research. I'm sure if you look hard enough and in the most amount of places that you will be able to find a lot of sources. Please look beyond just the first few, because I'm sure when you look it up, the first thing that maybe the first 20 things you see are going to be, oh, this is a horrible thing that doesn't work. But we know that they treated ivermectin the same way. They treated hydroxychloroquine the same way. They treated all that stuff the same way. yeah, obviously, it's the cheapest intervention against COVID. Um, yeah, I went a little deeper into this, but I just wanted to explain the full significance of that for a second. Um, so yes, um, that is what I think happened for what Trump said. Instead of, I don't think he meant bleach. I think he meant chlorine dioxide. The next headline I wanted to talk about was just something funny. As a libertarian, I saw you have to pay money to visit Karl Marx's grave because the Marx enthusiasts who have the property, uh, could not find a realistic way to maintain the property without charging visitors a fee. Uh, Obviously, that is hilarious because in communism, there's not supposed to be private property. So that is pretty hilarious. Private enterprise wins every time. Wouldn't be a big deal if they were not against private property. I would not have had to meme Karl Marx and the people who work at his gravesite if they weren't charging. I also was going to talk about a 80 page of ATF records from the DOJ in a lawsuit show the CIA deployed personnel to Washington, D.C. on January 6th. So they had CIA agents in the crowd, which is what we've been saying. Not me specifically, but people have been saying that for a while. And it has been a conspiracy theory. But again, here we have some official documents to, again, prove the conspiracy theory is right. Lastly, if anyone here is thinking about voting for Trump, I wanted to put another thing on your radar real fast about how Trump does not follow through on his rhetoric about wanting to drain the swamp. He actually wants to fill up the swamp. So the only anti-swamp candidate still in the race is RFK. I'm sorry, I'm promoting him all the time, but I think he is basically the only presidential option at this point. So this is a clip. I'm going to play this clip for you, which I don't normally play clips on the air, but this is Representative Adam Morgan. He's a Republican from South Carolina, and Trump endorsed his swampy primary opponent. And he just said this recently. I thought this is something that a lot more U.S. Government officials need to be saying. So I'm just going to play that. If you're not already listening to this sped up, just you might speed up through this part just to get through it a little faster. I'm going to play this. Just remember that Trump chose to endorse the other Republican and not this guy. So he obviously, you can see where his actions do not match up with his words.
Not even vote red on the board. Y'all might not know this. A dark money entity that was created on Tuesday, the day after we voted for this, I went home and a tag piece went out in my whole district about the fact that I voted for this. I get that the people in Columbia, that the lobby wants me to either not vote or to vote green on this, but my constituents want me to vote red, and they want their tax money spent on core government functions, on their roads, on their schools. That's what they want their money spent on. So, they don't want us in here trying to play this government planning thing where we in our bureaus can figure out where the job should be, who should be employed, how much money should be allocated where in the private sector. It never works. It's socialism. It's never worked anywhere before. So what are we doing trying to do it here?
But wait, would you consider the fact that South Carolina's track record on bringing major projects into this state has a winning record, and therefore, again, commerce should be listened to rather than those people back in your district that may not have ever brokered a deal, may not understand what it means of being a project, may not understand economic incentives. So what you're suggesting is we should listen to the people back home in your district rather than the people at Commerce that have been successful at bringing these mega deals to South Carolina.
Mr. Rutherford, I don't think that you could have espoused a philosophy that disagrees more fundamentally than me. I completely disagree with you, and I think that you believe what you just said. But no, I 100% am going to listen to the people back home who I represent in this house, and you should listen to the 40,000 people in your area, and not the bureaucrats at Commerce, and not the lobbyists, and not the multi-billion-dollar international corporations. You should listen to your constituents like I am. So yes, I will always fall back on the common sense of the wonderful people from Taylor's and Greenville Eastside, far more than I will ever listen to unelected bureaucrats, other representatives in here who have been here for far too long and have maybe managed a whole lot of these deals, and far more than I will ever listen to any member out there.
So, Mr. Morgan, we don't.
Okay, so that was Representative Adam Morgan, who Trump chose to not even endorse, but do the opposite of. He chose to oppose him for a, I don't know the guy's name, but for a much more swampy, to put it that way, less not corrupt, a more corrupt politician, just like all of them. And this is, again, going back to yesterday's episode, why I do not hate that RFK is considering non-politicians, because I do not like politicians, and I don't think anyone should. So yes, that is how I'm going to end today's show. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I hope you have a great day tomorrow. I hope to see you again tomorrow, because I will be here. Thank you.